Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering in Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We're continuing on in the Enginerds kind of recreation world here. So this is one of my solar systems, but I've kind of recreated the environment, which is to say I found a suitable asteroid and then pasted this guy in. And then we're continuing on with the semi-survival mode. So I was pondering ideas, and one of the things I wanted to do was basically take this off and recreate similar over here. Now, here's the issue. Effectively, this is going to be the same thing. Um, so what I was thinking is maybe rather than take it off, or rather than grind it all down and recreate it over here, would be to grind down this center section, which is to say this connection area, which is mostly um, conveyors, junctions, that sort of thing, and move this whole section, turn it sideways, and then merge block it in. Because ultimately, that's what I want to do. Effectively, all this stuff that's in here would be just as good here. In fact, identical to what I would be doing there. So, a couple changes at this end, and I think this is going to bolt up just fine against the refinery here, which is what I'm hoping. Um, Having said that, I'm going to, I think, use the little tug here, the miner, as a little tug. So gotta figure out what 2 is now. Floodlights. I've been seeing a lot of problems where I set up a group and random things appear in the groups. And I was running into this. I was playing in a Keen server, um, and building a base. Basically, it was a lander that I landed, and I didn't land it in an ideal place, but it was on a lake, so that part was ideal. It took me a long time to find minerals around, and I did not find all of them that I needed, but I found enough to make it work. Um, but I created a thruster group, and of course this was an atmospheric thruster set, basically this miner but atmospheric, and it continuously ended up with, oddly enough, a battery that was on the station. And I could not begin to explain. I would deselect it, resave the group, and it would just magically reappear there. And I could not begin to explain what was going on there. So, let's go ahead and unlock here, and move forward out of the range. So the spotlights in this case turn back on, and maybe that's because I deleted all the spotlights in the meantime, or the floodlights rather. So let's go ahead and turn, yeah. So clearly there is something in a floodlights group. So let me jump out of here real quick. There's clearly something in a floodlights group here that is not a floodlight. So cargo teleporter has ended up in the floodlights group. So in this case, I'm going to delete the floodlights group because there's just no need for that to be there. And then I don't know if there's any other place to put this. So for some reason we turned that off on the toolbar. We're going to go ahead and leave that on the toolbar, and we're going to put that in systems miscellaneous. So save and terminal off. We have apparently new batteries. So one of the advantages here of dismantling and putting this back on is the batteries. I don't lose the batteries. Now, in playing in the Keen server world, I apparently am mistaken that when you grind the batteries down, you do still lose the power cells. So apparently there is some mod that I am running. I don't believe it's in my own. It could be that alters the batteries to the point where they don't return scrap metal. So apparently there's apparently somebody else feels the same way I do about that particular feature. So here's what I want to do is lock this thing onto this front connector. And so let's go to the reverse camera here. Unfortunately, I do not have my sight on this particular one, but we're going to wing it. There we go. And then 6 to lock. And then we'll jump out of there. So the idea is that we'll grind down these connection points, make this a completely independent thing, and then we'll see if we have the thrust and gyro capacity to spin this thing using the little miner here as a tug. May or may not work. This is going to be really, really heavy, especially this. So what I may have to do because of the stone in here is kind of get creative and put another container. And I think that container will need to go. What I might have to do is just create. Let me see what I have here. Yep, I already have. So this should be speed modules. Let me get my Tiger Orange here. Spin these around. So ultimately, we're going to create an identical set of assemblers here. So assembler and assembler, and spin these guys. So speed module, speed module. We'll put the same thing here. Oh, come on. Spin the right directions. Alright, so we've effectively recreated this here. So what I'm going to do is, and again, this is hideously pricey, um, but I think it will be the easiest way to transfer. In this case, the elsewhere container, which we will put, we're going to put it right here. And then a conveyor sorter, which I do not have up on the bar here. So we are ultimately going to put another, let me just grab a sorter rather than take something off. Here we go, conveyor sorter. Rather than take So eventually I want to go ahead and create another medical and cryo room on the other side. So we're going to try and mirror over on the opposite side what we have. So, okay, so we're recreating this. So elsewhere container 2, which I didn't even call anything, huh? So this is container elsewhere stone. We'll end up renumbering all of these because there's so many of them. So these are all the containers, conveyor sorter. In this case, this is the stone sorter. It's not connected to anything, so I can go ahead and get away with this. So in this case, it's whitelist, so allow only this. And we'll go down here and select stone. So we're only allowing stone through there. Okay, and here's where it gets fun, because we're going to transfer everything that's in here into there, because that'll take weight off of this, mass off of this. And to do that, we're going to do it like this. We're going to put a dedicated conveyor in. So if all this works as planned, then we'll look for this elsewhere container. So I'm going to go inventory here, which is this guy here. We're going to move that over here, so it's there. And then we're going to look for the other elsewhere container, which happens to be this guy here. So you can see we have 22,000 stone, which isn't very much. And that number, oh, so the number is showing the mass here, not the volume. We have 8 million liters of stone there, which is, wow. And we're going to move that here. So come straight across, and then this is the container here, which we can then grind it down. And subsequently all of these things here. So 8, pull out my grinder and grind away. In this case, we're disconnecting. We don't need this guy anymore, so we can take this away as well. And this should be empty. Yep. And we can start grinding this. This is going to take a little energy. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I can hold that. Wow, look at that. So in this case, we're just looking for a connection point, which I think is going to be the reactor here, or one of the containers. It doesn't really matter. Oops. Inventory. And we are looking for components. And let's go ahead and say 01. And we're going to just transfer all of that in there. That way it's all where it needs to be. And then the inventory manager can arrange as it feels fit. So one of the things we need to do is recreate this reactor over here. And the question is, do we build it under? Do we build it over? You know, where are we building that particular mechanism? So just planning for the future here, let me go ahead and get the cargo junctions. We're going to go ahead and put a junction here. Oh, I need interior plate. Of course I do. Oh, I have already recreated the reactor. So let's go ahead and turn that on. We're going to delete that group. So that should be this. So this one should be small base, starboard, because we're recreating this one, so that becomes this one. And we were going to grab materials. So usually it's safe to have interior plate and plate. You can less glass, because glass is unique. Glass, you need girders to start, but everything else you can start with a steel plate or interior plate. So let's go ahead and put a conveyor down here. We're going to go in here and we're going to turn this reactor off and turn its cargo system off. And ISI actually does this automatically. So we're looking at this particular inventory, which comes up because I've selected it. So I'm going directly into that one. So that one's the first one that's going to come up. And what we want to do is move this out to something, and it doesn't really matter even what we're moving it to. ISI will move it around. So what I really, how about just find an ingots container assembler, ingot container, how about, and we're going to move that there, okay, which is just to get this out of the reactor, because we are now going to grind this particular reactor down. So it has moved already, so we don't need it here. All right, conveyor can go. Ultimately, like I said, we're going to disconnect this from the station. This is our goal. We're not connected on the corner of the cargo containers because they don't do that. And in this case, that is indeed to our advantage. So what we need to do on the other side, so I guess we can just go down and around. We still have this reactor here, which is going to go away. So we do need to turn it off as well, because otherwise things are going to end up into its inventory. So inventory, that's this guy here. We're going to go into control panel. We're selected to this. We're going to turn it off. This is already off. Inventory, bring up our inventory, and ingot container, and we'll drag this here. And then grind this guy down. So this is the only other thing. So what the intention with that was to get everything disconnected that had potential cargo in it. Now, the only thing I really have to do here at this point is empty out the empty out the assemblers here, and unfortunately I don't know which ones those are, so it's kind of one of those oops. This is going to get recreated mostly because I wanted to do inventory. Mostly because I am going to want that on the front where it's accessible rather than on the side. And I put the cargo teleporter in there wrong anyway because the control panel is there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and grind this down, grind the cargo teleporter down here, and grind this down, and then we should have just these 3 conveyors holding this whole assembler array onto the main station here. So we can see all the way across. So this is our last connection point. So we'll do a save because Space Engineers, and then we will grind this down and see what happens. All right. Well, disaster did not strike yet, so that may be a good thing. So there's 2 issues here. This is a static station, which means this section is likely still static. So what I need to do is change this into non-static, and I have to figure out how to do that because the miner is already non-static. So let's just get a control panel here, and okay, so this hopefully changed into just a strange grid, and it is a ship, which is a good thing. So Space Engineers has anticipated that I'm messing around here, which is grand. Okay, so we need merge blocks. Ultimately, we are merging. There we go. And ultimately, this is going to be here. Does not have any inventory, so I will likely have to weld these myself. May or may not be an issue. So I've discovered my first problem here, which is to say these batteries. These batteries are going to be a problem because these batteries are actually going to recess underneath here, or rather the space where those are now are going to be recessed underneath. So I'm gonna have to unfortunately move these batteries. So one of the things I noticed on the batteries that I have been working with on the New Keen server is actually 120 power cells. I didn't look to see what the power output was, but so this area here is actually recessed underneath, so the cargo containers are sitting there. So that was a problem. Okay. I don't know how that guy has power. Oh, because of this guy. So for the moment, let us power this down so it is not using energy I don't have, because it's drawing power off of this guy. Okay, this is the test. That was entirely unexpected. I was locked. That should have been drawing power from wow, that was strange. Okay. Battery. Battery. Which is to recreate battery, which I took off. It says static grid, but it has mass and the convert to station button is active. Okay, so let us try this again. We'll use our reversing camera, see if we can lock back up to this 6. That is a lot of mass. So I do appear to have quite a bit of maneuvering room, which is a good thing. So, and amazingly, so what I want to do is move this thing sideways and the behavioral characteristics here are really wonky. Which is to be expected, because this thing is way too small to be moving this kind of a mass around. As you can see, the thruster is continuously firing there. So my idea was to get this thing out far enough, and then swing at 90 degrees. So the miner becomes tug. And thrusting to port. Amazingly, the gyros are holding it. Interestingly enough, the gyros are moving this. The oddest part about what I'm discovering is that the gyros, while they have the force to move everything, when I stop manually controlling the gyros, or I guess you only have manual control other than some form of inertial dampening, but they don't arrest the motion. They start the motion and move it, but they don't stop it, which is odd. I would have expected otherwise. Okay, thrusting to port. Wrong way on the gyros. Oh. Last thing I want to do is twisting a little more. Okay, I do have room. is twisting, but the good news is I'm able to reasonably arrest the twist. It's a little close. We're pretty darn close here. Low but close. So hopefully if I can go slow enough to not see, this is making no sense here. So when I do the up thrust, it's twisting. God damn it. So strangely, when I do up thrust, it starts twisting in these really strange, wonky directions. Instead of twisting around an axis, it's not. It's moving around some random something I truly don't even remotely understand. Ooh. Alright, well. It was just like, okay, throttles up and get it in there. So thankfully when the merge blocks started doing what they were doing, it was like, oh, okay, well that might work out better than I thought. All right, so out of here, so that did work. The downside is I'm one further off than what I had hoped for. Um, Nothing I can do about that. So we're gonna end up with 4 assemblers in each row, which is plenty, I think. Um, the first thing we do is the merge blocks are no longer necessary because they have done their job. So we'll go ahead and take those off. And in this case, we're going to recreate the batteries, in this case, down this row. So that was the original 8 batteries that will get put back in here. We'll change the orientation to keep them the same. So all the joys of using a miner which can barely move itself as a tug and moving something that's like 20 times its weight. So that was really interesting. Okay, let's get this guy turned back on. Now that it is connected back up to the universe. Well, actually, yeah, it is. Barely connected, but it is. So, one of the things that we want to do here is put in a conveyor for this connection. So that's that connection point. We may do others here as we go. And then it's the matter of getting stuff connected back in over here. Now, one of the reasons I really didn't want to just dismantle everything was because of these projectors. Now, I can't really use the projectors as is. That's not what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to do. Oh, oops. That's not what I wanted to do. So that's good, but this is a... So I need to look at this side and see how it was done over here. Apparently I have 2 junctions, a reactor, and then the medical bay is on top of the second junction. Alright. So I want to mirror what's going on the other side, on this side. So this one was actually a junction which ultimately the reactor is sitting on. I do have a space back here that I don't know what's going to happen there, but okay, so junction and junction. The medical bay will end up here, the cryo chamber here, and the reactor here, if I recall correctly. Let's go ahead and verify one more time. Yep, reactor pointing down. All right, is there? Yeah, there isn't a hole over there. Well, batteries down here. So we'll figure out what to do there. That's probably going to be a battery because I just can't stand to have, you know, wasted space there. Okay, so 8 reactor. So we're going to spin this in the correct direction, which is here. So that way it's pointing down like the other one is pointing down. We have a cryo chamber here, and another medical bay here. So this reactor is now small base port, so it replaced the other one. Whoa, that's putting out a lot. Which means we really do need to get more reactors. So let us begin. Reactors it is. Let's see what this and I can indeed do the same thing over here. So this is now starboard 01. Starboard 02. Small port 02. Base starboard 02. Come back in and make sure that I have indeed named all of these correctly, which I have not. Now, there really is no sideways or up and down in space because it's all relative to gravity well. But the reason I put this sideways, if you consider the two lights upside down, up and down, having this on the side actually gives me a target on the miner. So technically this is the front. Maybe I can be even more specific and say front port. Chamber port. I think we are going to get rid of the two projectors because the whole reason for the evolution was to salvage those, but in this case There's no need, and they're kind of in the wrong place anyway. How is that not connected? So we were putting batteries along the bottom here, and I think I'm going to leave the gap here, but I am going to put them in here. So batteries. I'm going to keep with consistent form here. So there's this one, this one, this one. And then we got that one and that one. Now, one of the things we have here are blast furnaces, the arc furnaces. I can't see why it wouldn't be appropriate to just continue on in the same venue. So let's change this. So we need our grinder to grind down this wonderful little thing. We have a conveyor tube here and a conveyor junction here, and it's called a curved, but it's an elbow. 8G. Let's arc furnace. So no more medical, potentially none of those. So 8, which is putting down arc furnace, and then get the arc furnace facing the right direction here, which I think is this. So the arc furnace has a port in the front and a port in the back. So we're going to just continue on with this venue. There we are. Which will then aid us quite a bit in the pursuit of the three majors. So cobalt, iron, and nickel are what the arc furnaces can deal with. So I think we have 8 of these and 8 refineries. So obviously these guys are a lot smaller, but they actually are a bit more efficient when it comes to those 3, but those are the only 3 they can handle. So we have successfully modified our barge here. We made it twice the size that it was, which is good and bad. As a barge, it has become exceedingly large. On the flip side, as a processing mechanism, it's actually going to be very successful, I think. So let's move the miner over to its new home. So 6 to break away from 6. Staying sideways. We'll go ahead and get our number 5 camera here. Shifting. Alright. Reverse. Ready, locked. All right, so that's its new home. We have plenty of room in front to do with things, and then so this can go away. We're gonna leave that guy. That was actually our projector for the miner. And what I think ideally would be to put another projector here, but you know what? I don't think there's really any need for a projector on the station anymore. And if there is, then we'll put it back on. Simple, simple. Okay, just for sake of redundancy, I'm gonna put that in there. Yeah, we'll do that. Something else we're going to do, because it really has come up at this point, is there's no oxygen tank on the barge here. So I think we're going to go ahead and put one in just for sake of if I run out of ice. I think that's probably inconceivable at this point, but if then having an oxygen tank will at least let me survive. So we're going to go ahead and yeah, we'll do that. So we're going to put all those out there. We're going to retake our 2 primary. So this oxygen tank is going to be called tank oxygen port. And there's actually no room over here to put anything in, but we are going to go ahead and put in this redundant connector. Okay, eventually we'll figure out what to do here. Possibly another one of these guys, possibly build and repair systems. I kind of have gotten rather fond of the build and repair systems, but we'll leave that to a bit later. Okay, so we have filled the space down here with arc furnaces. We need to get our stone box reconnected here. So let's just make sure that this is doing what it's supposed to do. So stored stone, drain all, whitelist stone, which is exactly what we wanted. So that is just pulling all the stone. Alright, the other thing that we need to do is replace our, we had a, the cargo transmitter. We pulled the cargo transmitter off. And I need to put that back on. So let's go ahead and go to number 8. We need a small container, and the cargo transmitter, which is PayCast cargo teleporter. I call it cargo transmitter, but it's really a cargo teleporter. And we're going to put this kind of in the same place as we did that guy over here. Conveniently, I put the conveyor junction there. Alright, so we'll flip that around, and we're going to flip that one more time so we have the control panel there. It's facing the correct way because this does act as a sorter. And then number 5, we have a small container. Okay. So this is a standard and consistent configuration that I use here. So this is always going to be from, in my case, this is always going to be from Cargo XMIT, which is my standardized mining mechanism. So this is how I do what I do when I use these transmitters. This is it's not an elsewhere container, but elsewhere receiver, which is the counterpart to the cargo teleporter there. And we'll go back into the teleporter because I did forget to do one thing, which is to turn drain all on. Okay, so I want to pull everything in. Okay, I guess one of the things I should do, and it should not be a problem, but to make sure that everything is owned by me, and we'll do that one more time. Yep, everything is owned by me. So what I want to do is turn those guys on the terminal, and then I'm going to start deleting groups. So nanite factories will stay. Refineries, I'm going to turn those on the terminal, and then go back in and delete that group. So I've got a lot of stuff here, and in fact, one of the other things I want to do temporarily, the miner in this case is connected onto the grid. So what I want to do is leave it here so it's going to be ready to be locked, but I'm actually going to turn off the lock. And the reason why is it's a connected grid, so everything in it shows up on the main grid. And so temporarily we're going to just have it sitting here so it's mag coupled, but it is not locked. And then that will give me a little more flexibility here to really truly understand what we're doing here. So production, now I had this in refineries before. They are refineries, but I'm going to go ahead and say arc furnace. So we'll keep these separate. There's no real reason to do that other than because. All right, so off on the terminal. Assemblers, I'm gonna get a little bit OCD here. I want to go ahead and relabel these appropriately. The batteries, I'm not, just because I tend to put in so many batteries. So what I'm going to do here in this case is just rename a few of them. So this is going to be battery 5, which is missing. This is going to be battery 6, which is missing. This is going to be battery 7, which is missing. So batteries. So I don't believe we have a battery group. We do. We're going to go ahead and make sure all our batteries show up. Okay, I have no idea what that group is. So we'll recreate a batteries group off on the config and off on the terminal. We have assemblers, which we're going to deal with here shortly. We have a bunch of containers. So we're going to go ahead and put those containers into a group called, ironically enough, containers. And let's make sure we do have a containers and a connectors group. So let's turn all the connectors on, delete this group, turn all the containers on, and delete this group. So we now have a new group, containers that we create. We're going to turn those off on the toolbar and off on the terminal. Okay, I just screwed up. Containers, delete. Because a connector is not a container. So I oopsed. Okay, let's try this again. Container. Off on the toolbar, off on the terminal. So, crowd chambers and medical rooms. No reason to have them on the toolbar. They're an interactive device. That's all they do. So I'm going to go ahead and put those into the systems miscellaneous group. So save and turn them off on the terminal. There's no reason to have them in here. Elsewhere receiver is a container. So we're going to go ahead and do container save. We'll turn it off on the toolbar and off on the terminal. We have O2 generators. I don't think I have any way to get to these guys, but let's go ahead and look. Yep, I do. Oh, no, I don't, because they go in sideways. All right, first things first, we'll come back to that. So we have 8 assemblers. So let's focus on the assemblers. So here's assembler 4, assembler 3, assembler 7, and assembler 8. So if we're kind of not following naval tradition, which we're kind of not going to do here, so we have 2 groups of assemblers. So, so we can actually tell the difference. So let's verify here. We have assembler 4, which is the portmost one. We have assembler 3. We have assembler 7 and assembler 8. So let's go ahead and rename this to group 2. And it's group 2 because it's the farthest forward. So the group 1 is the closest to the refineries and cargo containers. So it's kind of arbitrary. So 4, 3, 7, and 8, right? Or was it 3 and 4? Let me look. I'm brain dead. Yep, 4, 3. So, okay. Assembler 4. So this is, let's call it group B01. Uh, 3 in this case is group B2. 7 is group B3. And 8 is then group B4. Okay, let's view. So we have group B01, group B02, group B03, and group B04. So this is exactly what we had intended and desired. So the good news is we can take those and turn them off on the HUD. That will leave the assemblers back here, which is assembler 1A and assembler 2, assembler 1, and 2A. So 2A, 1, 2, and 1A. That's going to be fun to remember, huh? Let's try it and see what happens. So, assembler 2. So, we're going to change to group A, and this is 01. So, 2. I think. So 1A is number 4. So this should be 3. This is number 4. And this is number 2, I think. So let's check. So, and I'm totally wrong. I'm off by 1. I got 4 correct. Okay. So 2 is 1, 3 is 2. So group A. So 2 is 1. 3 is 2. And 1 is 3. So I totally hosed that up. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have recovered. Alright, so we have the 2 groups, but we're keeping them together, and we're going to call this production assemblers. And then we're going to turn off the HUD because we don't need that anymore. We're going to go ahead and turn those off on the toolbar, so that was a toggle to make sure they're all off, and then turn them off on the terminal. Okay, we have a lot of upgrade modules here, and normally I dump those into miscellaneous, and we might still do that. In fact, let's go ahead and look and see where they are. They're not in miscellaneous at this point. The other thing that I sometimes do is just create a group specifically. So we have a specific number. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So theoretically, normally I don't do this, but 13, 14, 15, 16, because what you call it is actually irrelevant. You could call a speed module a yield module and the game wouldn't care. So this is 1, and those are already numbered. So we're going to highlight all of these, but you notice we have this tank in the middle, so we're going to unhighlight that, and we're going to go systems upgrade and do a save. We're going to turn those off on the toolbar and off on the terminal because they serve no function at all as far as being on the world there. Okay, so alright, we were dealing with oxygen generators, so let's go ahead and turn them on the HUD. So there's going to be a forward and aft. So there's an oxygen generator, and for whatever reason that one's not showing up. Okay, well, we know that one's aft, so I don't know why that did not show up, but it doesn't really matter. And maybe because I didn't have them both selected. Yes, I just had the one. Okay, so we know this is aft. I'm going to call this a gas generator because it is. And this is forward. Right now, those are the only two that we have, and we may or may not change that. So, okay, we have the reactors now, so let's go ahead and create reactors. I'm having trouble typing here. Off on the toolbar, make sure that group is in existence. All right. Okay, so we've saved our generators, and we have so the generators are on the toolbar. Yeah, we'll leave those on the toolbar. Let's go ahead, and the tank has an inventory space. We're going to turn it off on the toolbar because it's useless on the toolbar, off on the inventory. And then we're going to create systems gaseous. We're going to do a save and then off on the terminal. So we'll keep all of our gaseous systems together. Now we're working with the refineries, so let's go ahead and turn the refineries to HUD on. We had gaseous. I just want to make sure that HUD is off, so we're not confusing the issues. Alright, so here we go. Let's see if I can get myself confused again. So 1, 2A, 4A, 3A. So I want to swap so this is indeed refinery 1. Refinery 2 is going to be where it is. I'm going to swap 3A and 4A, which is really 2A. So refinery. So 2, I'm going to arbitrarily assign it a 6 because it's in the ladder 4. So 1 is correct. 2A is now refinery 2. And just because I'm changing everything, I'm going to put a 0 in front. And the reason I put a 0 in front is because 0 is less than 1. So if you get the list, then you end up with a 1 next to a 10. That's why you end up with a 2 next to 20. So in the grand scheme of sorting alphabetically, then you end up with 1 being different than 0, 1. So that's why we're doing this. So 3A and 4A are actually going to swap. So this is going to become 8 by convenience, and 4A is actually going to become 3, and 3A is going to become 4. All right. So if we named everything correctly, then this should be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I was close, but this one becomes 0, 5, and because we have a port here, we can actually name these. So 0, 5. This becomes 6. And this becomes, oops. 08, which means the last one that doesn't have a number is actually 7. All right, so we have successfully renamed all of these guys. So we create the group called production refineries, which really are refineries. So toolbar off, inventory, obviously we have an inventory screen, and terminal. Alright, so we have successfully collapsed most everything down. Teleporter, we want to keep it on the toolbar, we want to keep an inventory, and it's going to go into the group systems miscellaneous. So terminal off. Temp base always stays by itself because if you put that in anything, it messes up everything else. LCD panels, so we might as well we only right now have the one sorter. So it really doesn't need to be on the toolbar, but we're going to go ahead and leave it there just in case. I don't actually have a cockpit or a control panel, or a control console rather, on the station right now, so that's a good thing and a bad thing. So we don't really have any toolbars that we can access, but so we're going to go ahead and put that into Systems Miscellaneous, save, and off on the terminal. So the LCD panels here, LCD panel 8, are probably this guy. LCD panel 8. So so this is ingots summary starboard. Okay, so it's ingots, and we'll call this now starboard. So ideally, we'll go ahead and bring this onto the terminal so we can actually see what's going on here. So this is components, starboard. That way we'll name all of these guys independently. The auto crafting we can leave exactly where it is. So this is power, starboard. And this is ISI status, starboard. So in this case, it's unassigned, so we'll call this spore. Spare starboard, this is going to be 3, and there's a method to the madness, believe it or not. So see, this is going to be 4, and this will be 1 and 2. Those aren't doing anything yet, but they may. And we'll kind of do some of the same things over here. So these guys are the only ones that exist, but to keep within the convention, this is status port, this is power port, ingots port, components port. Now, that makes no sense yet. So what I talked about was that I wanted to put in a BRS systems, put in the build and repair systems, and I still do want to do that. So this is why I'm putting these in. So BRS port and starboard, I think is what I just called those. Yep. BRS starboard, BRS port. And then we'll rename this last one over here as we'll be consistent and call it number 4. So this is spare port 04, even though there's not 3 others. Consistency is a good thing. Why is consistency a good thing? Consistency is a good thing because someday some engineer is going to stumble across this and look at this and say, wow, that's kind of organized. Okay, so we have a little bit of space over here. If I really wanted to look at things from a purely practical perspective, then I could probably put a fifth assembler in here. Maybe. Okay, so we have our recreation of the cargo transporter, cargo teleport. We have our stone container. And we have all our containers. All right, so the good news is we are at an interesting state of the base is kind of complete. So let me turn the HUDs off. Don't need those on. So that'll be okay. We go into refineries, HUD off. So we should just have our miner, which the antenna is turned off currently. Okay, so this was temp base. So we're going to go ahead and delete temp base, close. We're going to do a control B, which will recreate the new temp base. So close. All right, we talked about the build and repair systems. So what are the build and repair systems? So build and repair is just a different version of the nanite control, and it's an unfair comparison because I'm really comparing apples and oranges, and you can't do that. While they have similar functions, an apple and an orange are both fruit, so they are similar. But an apple is an apple and an orange is an orange. A nanite control factory is a nanite control factory. The build and repair system is the build and repair system. So if I had my wishes typically are that I have both systems available, because then you have the advantages of both and effectively eliminate your disadvantages. So because each system has its advantages and disadvantages, and in fact are very complementary systems, then being able to complement each other with both systems being on the same grid, you actually can good thing all around. That's really what I'm trying to say. Good thing all around. So we are going to have to change a few things. So what I have to figure out how to do is I've got a single connection point here. I have 4 programming blocks, I believe. I see those 4. Do I have any spares? Let's have a look. So I have not turned the... Okay, I do have 1 spare. And just for curiosity, let me browse my scripts and see if I have anything. Battery. Battery would be a good thing. Most of these other ones, so this one now is battery status. So conveniently, let's go ahead and do this. So this is starboard, and that script is looking for LCD panels that have bracket battery status LCD. So it's looking for this. So every panel that has that is going to look like that. It's a really neat script. I highly recommend it. By Light Wolf, I believe. So this is... What did I call it on the other side? Starboard. So we just called it starboard because it's kind of obvious. But it is. And then the BRS script will be here. Although the challenge with the BRS script is, in fact, this is a good. Yeah. All blocks. We want a programming block, which is this. Might be done. I still want to put in one more of those. Programming block. 1, 2, and if it will go right there. So that adds 3 more programming blocks, which saves me having to put them in on the other side. Those are now numbered. So down here at the bottom we have programming block 5, 6, and 7. So in this case, program block is spare 01 and spare 02. This one is now VRS status. Edit, browse scripts. There's a build and repair. Here we go. Nanobot build and repair system status. So this is an OK. Check code. Compilation successful. Now, we are going to make a few changes here, so we're going to come back into this in just a moment. But we we had two things here called LCD BRS port and starboard. So where that comes into play is that this script will not use them unless I tell it what I'm doing. So in this line here is the display and missing model targets. Understanding what all the different groups are and the way they've got them. The different kinds of systems here are, so hangar status, and they've identified all these different groups. So display definition new 0. Anyway, as I was saying here, so it's a comma space name, end quote, and comma. Okay. So in this case, we're adding another one, which is a space, and this one happens to be starboard, which then ends with a quote and a comma and then a space. So we have to keep that syntax correct. Otherwise, the scripting software won't read it. So check code, compilation is successful, and OK. Now, one of the things this is going to say is the BRS group is not found, which is true. So the other thing I want to change, you see, it identifies a group, build and repair group 1. I'm going to change this name. Because I always call these things something different. So I call it a BRS array, and in this case, base. Okay, so that would identify it in case this ever becomes a barge, which is what is intended, or maybe we'll go ahead and call this the barge. That might be kind of fun. Then I don't have to come back and change anything. So once again, we check the code. Okay. It's important to note that assembler group 1. So this script, one of the advantages of the nanite control factories is it can auto queue, which is to say if it needs something, it can actually tell the assemblers, if the assemblers are set up to auto queue with the nanite control factories, to auto queue. Now the problem is that I'm running an inventory manager, ISI in this case. ISI is auto queuing according to its list. So it's already queuing materials. Now, while convenient for the nanite control factory to be able to queue what it needs, it is also just as convenient for it to be able to draw from resources that already exist. Okay, so in this case, having an auto queue function would be redundant. Okay. If everything is working, which is to say I have all the raw materials that I need, or the ready to go materials, so the refined materials ready to go, then the assembler should be able to queue up everything, and ISI in this case, the inventory manager, has already queued up and built components. So the nanite control factory should never have to queue. So queuing in this case is turned off for the nanite control factories because I have an inventory manager doing that. If you did not have an inventory manager and you were using the build and repair system, this name, this assembler group, would let the BRS system, or this script rather, queue things that the BRS systems need. So this is a way to do assembler auto queuing within the build and repair system. It uses a script to do that. And this is where you identify what the name of the group is, in this case the build and repair group, and the assembler group. So if you entitled an assembler group 1, you can call it anything you want. You just have to put it here. So in this case, production tac assemblers is the name of my group, that's the assemblers. I would put that here if I want this script to auto queue. In this case, I don't. So I'm leaving that as default, but if you ever work with this, this is how you do that. So this is the name of your assembler group. This is the name of the build and repair system group. Okay, so check code one more time just because, and okay. And out we go. So fatal error, repair systems group. Okay, doesn't exist. Which is true. It does not yet exist. There is a way to only have the BRS status panels show you the information you want. I just haven't figured out how to do that yet. Okay, so build and repair system. We have to figure out, I've got a single connection point, which means I'm either going to be moving this medical bay and doing something else with it so I can accommodate this, or I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to accommodate everything here. So ideally I want 8 build and repair systems right here. Figuring out how to do that is where my challenge is. So I can either put them in upside down and then create a link on the back side of them, which no, I can't. So it would actually be a link on the front side of them. Or I figure out some other way to make this work. So build, which is right here. So conveniently, okay, I can solve my problem by so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 3, 4. A conveyor goes here, and an elbow there. So we've connected both the rows in laterally along the side. Okay. Build and repair systems are now installed. We need to configure them. One of the other things, there's basically an INI file that will give you default settings here. I haven't figured out how to do that yet either. I haven't come up with, I was hoping there would be a good description on how to do that, and I haven't found that yet. Okay, so we called this, if you remember in the script, we called this the BRS array barge. Okay, so there's the group. We're going to go ahead and turn that off on the toolbar and off in the terminal. Having done that now, we're going to configure these in my standard configuration methodologies. So we help others. We are building new, but you have to be careful of this because the second a projector is running, it will start building. And you may not have even aligned the projection yet. So you have to be careful with this. Walk mode and fly mode. I'll let you look up what those are. I'm just going to go down the list here and do my configuration without too much dialogue here. Okay, so this is my standard configuration here. And we'll go with this. And they are default off. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and turn them on because ultimately I want them on. Not doing anything, but they're on. Alright, so it is time to save once again. So F10, this is temp base. We're going to delete. It has come time to name it now that I have actually established a precedence here. So info, instead of KTC temp base, this is now going to be the production barge. And because it is now the production barge, then we're going to take a copy. Okay, there it is, production barge. Alright, so we have the little miner over here. We're going to go ahead and get it reconnected on, which is a 6 in this case. We're going to jump out of this. You remember we have the big miner over here, so we're going to continue on with the cleaning up of this entrance, we're going to call it. When we're done with that, then we're going to move on to, let me go ahead and we'll set our plan in motion here. So if we look at what we have versus what we need, so you notice that we're out of ore, okay, for all of these different things. Now I have a bit of nickel, not much, but a bit. I'm out of cobalt, okay, just utterly out. Out of silicon, utterly out. Out of gold. So we have all of these things that we really need. The only thing we're sitting really good at is iron, and that's mostly because I just have a boatload of it because I've been mining. So as I'm mining there, we collect all this stuff. So we are going to continue on with the mining, but we have priorities. So cobalt, we need cobalt, we need silicon, and we need gold. Eventually we will need platinum. We've actually found a source of platinum, but ultimately we need cobalt, silicon, and gold. So those are our 3 priorities in that order. It doesn't really matter whether we do cobalt or silicon first. We need them both. So our queuing in this case is on hold because I don't have those materials. So we need those materials. Jump back in the miner here. This miner, if all things goes well, has So we have the transmitter turned on. So if everything is going well, then this this guy should be able to do the transmitting of everything it mines back. So it's on. So drill's on. I'm going to thrust to starboard. We're going to mine this this small little piece here. Originally, I was going to mine this all the way through, and then I kind of decided, you know, I have plenty of iron. I really don't need any more iron. So having said that, then I might as well get this miner to the use that it was really intended to, and I want to clean up this particular entrance and make it, you know, usable before I move on to, you know, other major projects. Okay, so now I have Sparkies all the way across, which means I am where I need to be. Okay, so let's plan. We have cleared out this entire plane of everything we need to do. So I'm going to back all the way out. We're going to come up to the new plane, which is really to say we're going to clean up this one side. So we're going to come straight up. We're going to go ahead and align our view, in this case, on the long axis of the ship. Let me turn the signals to normal. So basically I just want to get this lower plane of... damn it. Sorry, my mouse cable all... Okay, so we're looking effectively down the underside axes of the ship. So we're going to use that as an alignment. So there we go. We're basically aligned on the next plane. So alt view again. We'll do the same kind of alignment here, and we're going to thrust to starboard. Sorry, port. And we're going to do just a tiny little bit of trimming here. Okay. So if all goes well, then this will be a very short maneuver right up to the front where we were before. So let me zoom in here and watch my drills. So, thrusting forward. So not a whole lot of trimming here, but if all goes well, this will be right at the bottom drill. There we go. So Alt change our view, and indeed it looks like we are about lined up where we want to be. So the reason I have that stone sorter is to really just shunt the stone off to the side and out of my way. So not a whole lot of use for it at present. Eventually, when we have nothing better for the refineries to do, then we'll bring it back in, refine it all to gravel, and then actually run it into a trace element extractor is the idea there. So we do need a bit of gravel. Because when we're doing reactor components, we have to have gravel. So gravel is not completely useless. Mostly, but not completely. This is kind of one of the neat uses of the core drills because they're smooth-sided, so you can do trimming and make everything look very nice. But mining is always an exercise in patience. So it's just that very slow movement so the drill can take the material off without ramming into things and destroying your drills. Now, given the sheer amount of iron that I already have, I probably don't need to come up to the line, but because I've already kind of developed what the line is, then at this point it's more just, following through to what's already established. You can't really have too much iron. There are so many things that are directly made out of iron. So all of the tubes are iron. The steel plate obviously is iron. The internal plate is iron. Construction components are iron. So you have those 5 major things which are all based on iron. So you use an incredible amount of it when you're actually building, when you get down to building. So my line is coming up here, and I'm gonna stop there, and then thankfully I should be able to focus on, there we go. Okay, backing off. Full thrust. Thrusting to starboard. So now we're just cleaning up the center. So just really finding where this center is the challenge here. So we're just taking out this big crag-like thing and making this a proper opening that we can do pretty much anything we want. I think that's set up about right. So I'm going to swing around to this side so I can see. The camera's still probably going to mess up a little bit, but that's all right. Obviously, you don't want to just slam into anything with your drills. Most of the materials mine at about the same rate. So once you establish, it's kind of hard to see the meters per second there, but you notice I'm drifting into the 4.4. So what I've found is a third of a meter per second is perfect for vanilla miners. Okay, so the good news is the Sparkies have all stopped, which means I'm clear. Alright, adjusting to starboard. We'll do the realignment here. So the idea is to align along the long axis of the ship, right? Just so we can see where we are. Alright, so we're pretty much there. Evenly lined up. We have a little bit of buffer zone because the drills actually are wider. The drill drills out a little bit wider than the drill. Which is fine. Okay, so we'll swing back around so we can see what we're doing here, and then forward again. Once you see the first spark, then it's down to our third of a meter per second. Click one more back on the view. I wish there was an in-between, but there is not. cleanup is often a very redundant thing, but the nice thing about it is once you're done, you've got a very workable space. Now, obviously, creating a big hole in the side of your asteroid does not improve your defensibility any, but there's a couple things that I ultimately want to do here, mostly just for fun. So it's counterproductive in a lot of ways because it kind of creates a permanent home base, which is opposite of the whole barge concept. Obviously, the barge is a mobile device, large though it may be, still a mobile device. So what I really kind of want to do is create this asteroid as the production base, and recreate a lot of the production capability here. Okay, so I really am done with this. So the only thing left is this strip down the middle. So I'm going to back off to the edge of that strip. I'm going to move over. The other way. And because that strip is the only thing there, then I just want to make sure I take it all out, because you never want to leave those little voxels sitting anywhere because you'll run into them and you can't see them. So forward, thrusting forward. Which should clear out this entire center on this particular plane. So mining in general is a very tedious thing because mining goes very slowly. The good news is when you get a reasonable sized miner working for you, you're taking in an incredible amount of material simultaneously, which means production wise you've taken in much more material in a much lesser time than with the small miner. So the small miner takes time, it only can bring in so much material simultaneously, whereas this large miner is taking in just a veritable boatload of material. Whether you can use it or not is a different story, but the stone in this case is all being shunted to that one container, but it's there, and collecting it is half the problem. Once I have it collected, then what I do with it is flexible. So that's the thing about these large miners that make them so incredibly useful is, yes, you've taken in an incredible amount of material, but at the same time, once you've taken it in and collected it, you don't need to do that again. You probably have enough to do just about anything you could possibly want to do. So just working right here, we have taken in enough iron that I do not see that we need any more iron for anything. To build a base that would use all of the iron and materials that I have there made from iron, it would break the game. So I don't think that I could conceivably use all of the iron that I now have at my disposal. Which is kind of one of the reasons I didn't mine all the way through on the far side over there. Just not a lot of reason. So what would have taken me probably 20 to 30 minutes with the small miner, this has really only taken me like 5 minutes to do with the big miner. Because again, you set your cruise control, your proverbial cruise control, at 1/3 of a meter per second, and off you go. Okay, and the sparkies have stopped, which means we have no more material backing off. Okay, so if we look at this side over here, there really doesn't look to be much trimming that we need to do in this plane that we can't accomplish in the next plane up. So the same thing kind of over on the left side over there. So I think I'm just going to focus on removing this big stone thing in the middle here. But I am going to remain on plane. I'm just going to take things out as best as possible. So that looks to be reasonably aligned. So let's get aligned along the bottom of the vessel, thrusting up. Okay, there's a stone, so thrusting down. That should be about right. I'm going to go down just a hair more, just to align. Alright. Zooming in just a little bit and thrusting forward. Okay, sparkies have stopped. Thrusting back. Gonna keep it rather centered just because there isn't a lot of material over there. So I should be able to hit everything reasonably well. Thrusting forward. So let's try turning dampeners off and then thrusting at 1/4. Which is working well. So mostly it's just a matter of watching the sparks. So the sparks are going to end here shortly at the top. And at the bottom. And now the top. So, dampeners on. Full reverse. Alright, so get myself lined up with the edge of the stone here, which is about that. Alright, check, make sure I'm clear, and get myself reasonably lined. So, thrusting up. So I think that's about it, but let's go ahead and check the long axes of the vessel. So there's just about the long axes. So the second the stone comes into view, we know we're lined up, which there it is. So thrusting down. There it is. All right. So we're lined up as best as we can be, I think. So, thrusting forward. Alright, inertial dampeners off. I'm going to try the 1/3 of a meter, see how it does. Working out pretty well, I think. So slants the other way, so as soon as that stops the sparky, then which? Alright, dampeners on, full reverse. Thrusting starboard. So, view down the long axis of the ship so we can realign with the stone. A little too far. Alright, there's the alignment. I should have probably kept going because there was more up there at the front. Well, we'll hit this and then we'll do that eventually. We'll get there. So this pass is going to be all the way forward. This is going to be a long, long run. So ultimately this is going to start chewing into this upper section here, and then I'll back off and come back in, doing my plane to the port side. The question is, how far is far enough in terms of this upper portion? Um, I kind of think that's plenty. All right, backing off. So, swirling around trying to figure out how much more is there to the starboard. And so let me go swing to the port again, just to clear that portion of the plane. I think that's about aligned. Don't want to go to, there we go. Oops. All right, let's set up our third of a meter. That's exactly a third of a meter there. See how this does. I've found you can go up to sometimes half a meter a second, but it gets a little bit problematic sometimes, and you tend to bounce. In the small miners, that's a big thing because you bounce, and then the whole vessel shifts. In these big core miners, because there's so much mass, you hit and stop. So it doesn't shutter you to the side so much. So you have a lot more control when you have more mass. It doesn't tend to shift on lateral axes nearly as much. So kind of a nice thing. I think we're going to go to the same line up here. I think going beyond that is unnecessary. At this point, it's unnecessary. We're cleaning up. We're trimming. Almost there. Full stop. Backing off. All right. watch, because I don't know how close the stone is over here. Yeah, we're good. You can see some of those little slivers I was talking about, those little tiny pieces that are really hard to see, but they are there. Okay, and I did go just a hair too far. Alright, that's about it. Lots of room here. I think it's going to hit the iron first. Yep. Try 0.36. Almost there. And full stop. Thrusting back. All right. I think I am going to take this top portion off just because. That's it. Well, let's see what happens, huh? Roll in one. Thrusting forward. So those little tiny slivers that I really want to deal with, get rid of them. Alright, setting my proverbial cruise control here. more sparky, but that doesn't necessarily mean... So I'll hit the stone forward there before I will hit butt. That is going to be... in there. There we go. Full stop. Resting back. Alright, so now at this point is just to kind of see where we need to be. So let me go ahead and exit. Kind of come over here. I should have turned the drills off and see what we want to do. So we really just want to clear this corner to be even on this side. So we're really just going to take out this corner here. And we can do that all the way forward to our line, I think. It'd be kind of hard to see our line, but hey. Alright, so we'll realign. We actually have a good point right here. That's our alignment point. So, the trick is coming in behind the drills, because the drills will kill you. They will drill you too. Okay, so in the cockpit, align on the long axis here, which is really align on this side. Thrusting starboard. Almost in. Alright, I think that's it. Thrusting forward. See how closely we are aligned. Pretty good. I think I'm happy with that. So thrusting forward. just hit that little outcrop. There it is. Setting speed. The advantage to staying on plane, which is really to say in a very in a singular positional vector, and what I mean by that is I'm moving forward and backwards on the same axes without moving. So I only change in the Z plane and only change in the Y plane. Everything else is forward, backwards, exactly. So it makes things a little bit easier when you're trying to clean up large areas like I'm doing here, or when you're trying to mine out an asteroid completely. So that's why I like staying directly on a plane. All right, let's look and see where we're at. All right, I think we can thrust forward a little bit more creatively here. All right, setting speed. Hard to see where my line is here, but well. My somewhat arbitrary line, as the case may be. Almost there. Full stop. Reversing. Okay, now it's the matter of seeing what is over. Alright, I think I'm using my iron here. Alright. I think that's pretty much aligned. I don't know if that crag sticking out the top is clear. So it looks like I'm going to hit the stone just inside that crack, I think. Yep. There we go. All right, setting cruise control. So if I've done this correctly, then I'm actually still aligned with the edge of that iron up there. It looks like I am. Alright, and I think I'll just continue a little bit. Nope, full stop. I was thinking that was gonna go all the way through, but it wasn't. Okay, and I'm gonna go down just a little bit now that I've gone all the way over to the side as far as I need to go. We'll come down, do one more sweep in. Alright, thrusting down. Probably went too far. Yep, thrusting up a little. Alright, that should be good, and thrusting forward. Setting cruise control. So I think with this pass, we're pretty much done with the entrance. So we've created this great big huge entrance for the asteroid here, I think. We've certainly cleaned up something that was a little bit dangerous otherwise, which is what really matters. So, small scale cleanup. When you're talking about just taking off those really, the little craggly, the tiny voxel things that would be dangerous, the small miner actually is really good at that. So, in this case, I built that small miner, then I kind of retired it off to the side. Alright, full stop. I'm onto my arbitrary line and backing off. And the reason I say that small miner can do a lot of this stuff is mostly because of maneuverability. Obviously, the big miner here has some maneuverability issues. So empty. Let's see how we did. All right. So we have successfully transmitted everything. So there's nothing retained in this. So jumping out for a moment, I've turned my drills off, so I'm being reasonably safe, and we'll review what we got here. So we have a couple little crags here. We've got another big hole up here, but it's these kinds of crags that are off to the side. It's these tiny little voxels that you can't see. these things that can be very dangerous for a vessel because you can't see them. You're flying through them and you end up slamming into them because it is a voxel. So where the small miner comes in is you dress up these edges and remove any of that. Again, the small miner really does serve a wonderful purpose that is very helpful. All right, let us review. So we've turned off the vast majority of So we're looking for cobalt. Okay, so that would be, you know, any of these. We also want silicon, so this would be a good one. But you know, this guy is really small. So what I'm gonna do. We're going to leave that one because that's home base, but I'm going to go ahead and turn that GPS marker on and turn that one off just so we don't get in the way. So because that's a small one, I'm going to just mine it completely out. So let's see if we can find out where that is. That's over there, 7.21 kilometers away. One more thing we're going to do here, and this may be possible, I don't know. So we have stone sitting in here. Let's see how much stone we have sitting in here. So it's still pulling in the stone in. So we have currently 12 million liters of stone. So definitely a lot of stone. So what I want to do here is have we'll go to number 8. Where is it? There we go. So ultimately is the element extractor, but it's the Mega Mini refinery that I really want. Now you can see this is really pricey. So the large ship, which is kind of scaled off the screen here, but you can see this is extremely pricey. So steel plate, ultimately all of these different things. Gravity generator components even. So whether we have these detector components and the gravity generator, I don't know. Here's the other thing, and this is even more pricey because of what it does. There you go. So 1600, so this is extremely pricey, detector components and gravity generators. So we may not be able to do anything here. So let's look at the element extractor here. This may be a much more reasonable thing. Let's do that one instead. So the Kenti small refinery, I used an assembler model if you missed that, and we do not want this to connect in because that would create a redundant path, but we do want to add this guy in. So we're going to spin this over. You see there's a port there and a port there. We're going to spin sideways and do this. So the reason for doing that is I want to I'm going to do a couple more things. Tube, and we're actually going to put another may be able to do something here. We need a sorter. So all blocks, cargo sorter. We're gonna grind this and this. Sorry for the flashy thing. There we go. Alright, so here's what's happening. This thing should be, small refinery is not. So when we set it locked, then ISI will not mess with it, which is what I want. I don't know why it's dumping into there, but let's look at what's happening here. Probably because it doesn't have any place else to put it. Refinery. This is what I wanted to see. So it's coming up. It is working like it's supposed to. So sorter. So we're connecting into this container here, which then goes through this sorter, which pulls it in and dumps it into the system. But all we're doing is pulling ingots and ice. That's the only things we're allowing through here. So we're doing a white list, ingots and ice. So here's a sorter. We'll paste in the sorter. The build and repair system, and so this is sorter, ingots and ice. It is a white list. We'll go all the way to the top. We're only bringing in ingots because of the refinery running over there, and ice. Ice. Add. Okay, so these are the only things we are letting through. And then now that I have this configured, we're going to go to drain all. So the reason I did that before we started, sorry, get that flashy off. So this thing is pulling in stone. That's all it does. Pulls in stone. It dumps it into this box here, which is an infinite box. Then this guy is going to refine the gravel or the stone into gravel. This guy grabs the gravel, turns it into trace elements, which then go back into here and get refined into ingots, which this thing pulls, dumps into this box, and then this thing shoves it into the barge. Okay, so now we have a methodology of dealing with this stone and turning it into useful trace elements. So that's what this was. I don't like this thing hanging down here, but until I don't have another methodology yet. Okay, we will eventually, but not yet. Alright, so having done that, then this may actually be a great place to break for this video because we've been running for a little over 3 hours. So let's go ahead and do that. This is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.